toxic mother forced me to give my house to my younger pregnant sister, because my younger sister is pregnant and needs it more than I do. I, 31mm, have a sister, 28F, who has always been my mother's favorite kid, but not my father. My parents split when I was a teenager after my mother cheated on an old high school boyfriend. She has always been bossy, manipulative, and narcissistic, and my sister is unfortunately her little mini-me. Our mother also seemed to believe she had complete control over me whenever she snapped her fingers. She'd snap them and command me like a dog. It was degrading, and my sister constantly supported her. So it's no surprise that after our parents separated, I moved in with my father full-time, while my sister stayed with mom. The two of them were quite similar, and they hardly never spoke to my father unless it was about money, despite the fact that I am more like my father. My father was very business-oriented, and he began training me how to do his job when I was 16. I got fairly good at it, and after 12 years of working for my father, I was named a partner in his business. Things were going wonderfully until around 8 months ago when tragedy struck. My father had become slightly immunocompromised as a result of heavy smoking for long of his life, and he died at the age of 60 after contracting the virus. I met my mother and sister for the first time in years following my father's socially distant funeral via video call. My father was cremated at his wish and buried at a local cemetery, so there was no body or casket. My sister appeared to be grieving, but my mother remained unconcerned throughout, which astonished me. The last time she met my father, she yelled at him that he owed her more money and threatened to sue him, to which he simply laughed. He just paid alimony and child support for the amount required by law. He even contributed $30,000 toward my sister's college fund. However, 10 years after the divorce, he is no longer legally compelled to send mom money according to the judge's judgment, and she is far from broke. She works at the same job she has for nearly 30 years. Owns the old family home we used to share, and frequently rents out 2 of its rooms to Airbnb. She is not in financial difficulty. After the funeral, my father's will was read. He apparently believed that if his excessive smoking did not kill him, something else would, and he even laughed about it in a pre-recorded video. I was left almost all of his possessions, including the majority of his money, his business, and his home. He left my sister a car, a 2015 Nissan Altima, and approximately $10,000 in cash. My mother only received $1,000 and a few other items that she had claimed as hers since the divorce. Beyond that, I got the remainder, and my girlfriend now lives with me in the house my father left to me. My sister went from finishing 2 years of community college to living with her boyfriend and working part-time online for several years. During that time, she became pregnant but had a tragic miscarriage. I didn't know until after the funeral because we had almost little contact, and no one else told me. When lockdown began, her boyfriend's job began to downsize gradually, and he was soon only able to work part-time, which affected their finances to the point that he told her she needed to hunt for better employment as well, because he was looking for a second job. And then she became pregnant. She claims she and her boyfriend took precautions, yet she refers to it as her miraculous baby. One evening, I had an unexpected knock on my door, and when I opened it, both my mother and sister greeted me unpleasantly. They both walked in without asking and made themselves at home in my living room. My girlfriend and I exchanged confused looks, and I inquired as to why they had stopped by. My sister was giggling and looking around, opening doors and apparently giving herself a tour of my house. My mother had just dropped down on my sofa and snapped her fingers, requesting a cool bottle of water. My girlfriend got the water for her, and I inquired as to why they were here. My sister seemed ecstatic and simply disregarded me to continue rummaging around my house, and soon long I heard her cry down the corridor, "Mommy, it's perfect." Yes, she still calls her mommy. My mother finally spoke up saying, "Well, I think it's time to do your brotherly duty." To which I said, "What?" My mother went on to explain, "Now that your father has died, this house should have gone to me because I was his only spouse, but you can still solve it. You make a lot of money and could easily buy a new home. Your sister needs this one even more because she is the one with a baby on the way. But if you're that determined to stay, you could just stick to one room and pay all of the bills until you decide to go." My partner and I have read enough Reddit to know where this is going and how it will play out if I let it continue. So, I suppose you could say we were mentally prepared. I took a long breath and said loudly, "That isn't happening. You do not order me around, especially in my own home. Yes, I make a lot of money, but like Dad, I'm going to save it until I truly need it, not that you care." My mother began snapping her fingers at me like she used did and exclaimed, "Stop. I am your mother, and you will do as I say because I brought you into this world, and I am in power here. To you, I am God. That is, when I say jump, you specify how high. This house is properly mine, and your sister will reside here. Consider this an official eviction, but because I am kind, I will give you 2 weeks to collect your belongings and transfer the deed to me. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this can't be true. But then I grabbed my cell phone and began dialing. My mother suddenly sprang up and exclaimed, "What are you doing?" I responded, "I'm doing what I should have done as soon as this bullshit began. I am calling the cops to get you out of my house." She began swiping at me, eventually knocking my phone out of my hands. Then she attempted to step on it, but I was quick enough to grab it before she did. "That is it. If you do not go, I will force you out." My mother slapped me across the face, and I returned the favor twice as hard, backhanded, knocking her back down onto the couch. In complete disbelief, she placed her hand over her reddening and smeared makeup face and exclaimed, "How dare you?" I returned to dialing my phone and said that if she would not leave, police would come and remove her by force. My sister rushed in between us, extending her arms out and telling me that for once in my life, I should do the right thing and be a good older brother. I snapped and shouted, "Oh, so I'm the bad sibling? Last time I looked, I was the one who had to work for a living when I was a teenager. I had to do all of the housework while you spent the entire day sitting on your buttocks playing computer games or conversing with your pals. And you used to steal my hard-earned money so you could go shopping after you had spent your entire allowance. You are a complete leech and thief, thus I owe you nothing. Now both of you go out before I dial the last number." My sister burst into tears and cried, "Mommy, make him stop!" My mother began hugging and kissing her cheeks, giving me a death stare. Then she appeared to think she had gotten smart and said, "You know, if you call the cops, I can just tell them you hit me. And who knows, I could tell everyone that you wanted to do far worse to a poor pregnant girl in need. I don't think that would be good for you." I interrupted her with a raised hand, saying, "Just stop. If you haven't noticed, my girlfriend over there has had her phone out recording virtually the entire time, and that means we have video evidence of you assaulting me first and publicly claiming you would lie to the cops. I don't think that would be helpful for your reputation at work or your small Airbnb. If looks could kill, my mother would have detonated me like a tactical bomb, but she instantly deflated and began dragging my crying sister out by her arm. My sister was acting like a toddler and broke free from our mother's grip to sit on my front step and throw a tantrum. I just gave my mother a look and asked, "Do you see now? This is the outcome of how spoilt you reared her." She scowled at me again, and then I witnessed my mother attempting to drag my sister off of my porch steps, but she gripped onto the porch handrails and started saying, "You promised me," over and over. I let out a chuckle and told them both to never come back through the door. My mother flipped me off and went back to dragging my sister off the porch. It took a few minutes, but she eventually persuaded my sister to get up and leave with her by stating, "I'm a cruel, heartless bastard who will go to hell for this." I laughed some more and added that there is a specific place in hell for liars and narcissists who manipulate others to get their way. My mother clenched her fist and was about to scream something further when I held up my smartphone again, this time recording, and said, "The clock is ticking, Mom. Get off my property." My mother then escorted my sister to the car, gave me one final condescending look, and drove away. I assumed that was the end of it, but my mother never let things go. After a few days, I began receiving messages from friends and relatives online. Many of them were outraged with me, while others simply had questions about what was going on. I tried to check my Facebook but couldn't see what they were saying because my sister and mother had both blocked me on social media. But my girlfriend could still see everything because they kept their profiles accessible. We screenshotted everything and printed some of it out. Both of their profiles featured posts accusing me of being a selfish, cruel monster who stole the house that was supposed to be my sister's inheritance by paying off a lawyer who handled Dad's estate, which is a complete falsehood, and they are both aware of it. I called my lawyer, who was also my father's lawyer and a valued family friend, and provided him copies of all the Facebook screenshots and the video my girlfriend had taken on the day my mother demanded my house. He wanted to write a formal cease and desist, but I wanted to go a step farther, and he mailed them a note. I told him to send it by express mail that needed to be signed for, so I knew they received it. My mother contacted me furious the same day the letter arrived. I warned her that if she and my sister did not redact all of the false social media posts they made about me and reveal the truth, I would send all of the information I had to the entire family, her boss, and upload the videos we'd taken of her online, and then I'd sue her. She called me irrational and stated that she only did what she did for my sister's sake, before launching into a full-fledged lecture, emphasizing her conviction that my sister still needs my house more than I do. I told her plainly that I didn't care what she thought, and that if she didn't redact everything and speak the truth, her career would be gone. She reluctantly replied, "Fine, you win. Have it your way and keep the effing house," he said, hanging up the phone. That nightfall, all of the false posts were removed from both of their profiles. I was unblocked, and my mother gave me and everyone else a half-hearted apology, claiming she rushed what she said because she thought my sister needed my house more than me, because she was broke and pregnant. But the house was legitimately mine under my father's will, and she knew this even before he died, so she had no right to try to claim it. My sister also apologized, but she essentially repeated what our mother said while stating she simply agreed with her opinions. She then blamed everything she did on her mother and her pregnant hormones. For a while, the responses came in on both my mother's and sister's pages, with many of them upset that they tried to take my house. I had a lot of sorries and my bads from those who had previously believed her, but all it did was show me who was more on her side in the first place, given how readily they all bought her crap. They were primarily from her side of the family anyway. Nobody on my father's side believed her, and they were open about it. My sister and her boyfriend ended up moving in with her mother to save money, but she kept them in the basement so she could keep her Airbnb operating. And my sister started sobbing on social media about how she couldn't live upstairs. And I'm pretty sure the two of them were fighting because all she did after that was complain online. And as a result of the prior prank, my mother no longer posts much on social media.